like the APM body of knowledge, MSP is supposed to be a method. And it's really an interesting one because in saying that actually program management is a way of enabling organizational agility when you're pursuing major organizational change. The paradox of, well, you want to build it, you want the method to enable agility, but also have some strong governance and decision making around that. There's lots that's very similar in 5th edition to 4th edition. I'll say some more about that, but particularly the MSP, has got principles and it's got themes and processes. In the 4th edition, if you're familiar with that, there were principles, governance, themes, and they had this thing called the transformational flow. It was when we were in a stage of trying to differentiate the language of programs from the language of projects. And I think, one of the things that I've realized is people have sort of stopped trying to do that and put clear blue water between what's a project, what's a program. And it's all far more nuanced now. So principles, themes and processes, in an iterative life cycle, incremental progression. And what we try, I've got my next slide looks at some of the focus on some of the changes, but if you are familiar with MSP, what you'll find is in this 5th edition, we've got far fewer compulsory documents or prescribed practices, and more ability to tailor, more of an organising framework. And let me just sort of focus on some of the changes. I guess, I'm just trying to think when I first started, thinking about program management, and probably the late 90s, I did a chapter in the Gower Handbook, actually, of project management with Michel Thierry. And even then we were talking about programs being the bridge between strategy and project delivery, and those sort of languages of that sort of language, spanning the gap between strategy and projects. But I think that one of the things I was very conscious of in coming to MSP as lead editor was that, having said all that, MSP still felt like it had been approached from a project mindset. So it was, almost like, some of the techniques and everything, they felt like big projects, and maybe less of an organisational view, and particularly around some of the ongoing justification for programmes. So I was conscious of that coming into this, and just want to sort of highlight a few areas and changes. So, the first one, we've got this thing called the justification theme. I think there was a business case thing before, but it didn't really get into a more economic view of the initial and ongoing justification of the programme, and how the investing organisations were going to make decisions around that. So there's much more of an emphasis on that in fifth edition. There's also much more of a focus on decisions, not just on reporting. Let's report some stuff. No, what are we going to do? So decisions are not just looking back, but also looking forward. So, much more, hints of how programs can be far more anticipatory of change and, disruption, emergent risk, etc. In decision making. And that really ties into this step in the process that comes at the end of a tranche, and before you go either close the program and going to the next one, to say, right, okay, what's new here? Not only what have we learned in this tranche, but also what's out there in the environment that we need to take account of. All this was sort of implied, but not really nailed, I thought, in the previous versions. People say, where's the benefits principle? Where's the benefits theme? or why does it say benefits in the processes? So we decided to say, well, look, benefits are vital, I would say fundamental for programs. So the benefits focus is a principle and it applies in every theme and every process. As is the case with risk, actually, and that mustn't be my next one. We changed the language from 4th to 5th edition to stop talking about a blueprint and to start to talk about a target operating model. I don't know about you, but that's the language that my clients use, that I use. You know, that, you know, blueprint always felt to be a bit of a, I don't know, it was an unhelpful title, because we think of blueprints as being the answer, if you like, in an engineering term, and it was difficult to I think get people to understand that the blueprint then wasn't fixed. It was a hypothesis of what the organisation might look like when you finished. So we've used the language of target operating model and done much more about design, you know, and so some of the language that you've been used to, you know, from vision statements and stuff, but really trying to make sure that, you know, the vision, you know, the benefits, the target operating model are coherent and connected, and that there's take account of risk. And also, again, you know, we don't have a risk theme, or but we have this principle that we've called deal with ambiguity. A bit of argument about that, really, but the view that you know, risk in programs tends to be about things we don't know. It is about ambiguity. It's not about fundamental, you know, aleatoric uncertainty. It's about ambiguity, and so that's what we call the process there. We also have really sort of beefed up both the knowledge theme and the assurance theme, and so the assurance theme is based around 3 lines of defence now, and tied much more through into corporate governance and through into programmes, and also we've really tried to get away from, as we did with APM Body of Knowledge 7, that sort of transactional view of learning and lessons learned, which is a title I'm not very fond of, and really to think about knowledge and community practice, etc., in a much more mature way, which obviously you guys will be happy with, hopefully. The final thing I just want to say on here is we kept the word tranche. We started off with a view to say we ought to change that, people don't like it, and then couldn't think of a better word because chunk and slice and stuff didn't really work. So we've stuck with tranche, but there is a phrase, this is an Axelos phrase that they'd used before MSP, the idea of multimodal delivery. And what they mean by multimodal is that programs, of course, that work within a program, it could be projects, or we could say other work, because it could be you know, process improvement that's not organised as a project, for example, but that, you know, making it really clear how projects using maybe an agile way of working, you know, can coexist very happily alongside projects that are using a linear life cycle, or, you know, other techniques within the same program structure. So Axelos call that multimodal delivery.